We've been talking about simplifying our lives and keeping it simple. And so the verse we've been looking at a lot is in Matthew chapter 22. Well, Jesus essentially sums up every requirement, every law, every command really in just two items. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is equally as important, to love your neighbor as yourself. And so we have been discussing this simplicity, if you will, of life and trying to make it down to the most basics. I have found out, and maybe you have as well, that while indeed life is meant to be simple, God never promised it would be easy. And so why I would encourage you and implore you to keep simplifying, keep saying yes to God, and that means sometimes saying no to other things so that you can say yes when God wants you to move in a certain area. It's not always easy to do that. Often that means people will get upset or hurt or misunderstand, but just the same, loving God with all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our soul, all of our strength is what we're striving to do. That also means that you will perhaps be misunderstood for decisions that you make in your life, trying to give God first place. I think that's one reason why we are encouraged to be ready with an answer for the hope that we have. And so why would you do that? I love God. Well, yeah, just because you love God doesn't mean you have to be that religious. Have you ever heard that before? You have to be a Bible thumper. No, you don't understand. God isn't an add-on. He is on, right? Like He's my life. I don't add Him to our life. That also means that often in our lives, God will ask us to get over something. He will ask us to get over a hurt or over an issue. He will ask us to get over a personality conflict so that we can get under His blessing. Those are all parts really of loving God with everything. I want to hit the second part of that verse today. Love your neighbor as yourself. Neighboring. What does it really mean to love your neighbor? Today we're going to talk about orphan care. What does that look like? How do you put that in action? How do you walk that through in so many levels? The first area that you really have to wrestle with is a cultural wave that opposes the idea that you already love yourself. And so let me just hit with that first. So let me remind you, if you were here a couple weeks ago, that Jesus implies, as He says, love your neighbor, that you already do love yourself. You may not like the hand that you were dealt, you may not like what you have, but deep down, you really do cherish yourself. And so Jesus has used, as much as you look out for you, as much as you look out for your self-preservation, your self-fulfillment, as much as you live your life to try to be happy, however you define that, in the same way, do that for your neighbor. I mean, does anybody live life trying to be happy? Right? Hopefully we don't have to defend that. As much as you try to live your life with satisfaction, and anyway, it's another song going in my head. 2 weeks ago I danced for you, and I probably won't do that again anytime soon, so I'm going to hold off on that one. But we do live our lives trying to satisfy and get whatever we can get for me. For me. And so we buy things and we do things so that somehow I can have this measure of self-fulfillment, this measure of self-pleasure. And so we're all guilty of that, and that's not a bad thing. Jesus is simply saying, treat others the same way. Do unto them as you do to yourself. The cultural backlash is you'll often hear people saying, well, no, you just need to learn to love yourself more. And once you love yourself more, then you can love other people. And that sounds good, but it's just not biblical. You might need to treat yourself and honor God with your body a little better, but we really do love ourselves. So it's going to have to sink because all the tide says opposite. But again, if you weren't here 2 weeks ago, listen to the message on your own time because I probably shouldn't preach it again. So Jesus is saying, hey, the means that you care for yourself, how you think about yourself, how you behave about yourself, how you respond, we give ourselves a lot of grace, we do. How you give yourself mercy, how you allow yourself a little more patience, do likewise to those around you, to your neighbor. And today we're going to flesh it out. If you have Facebook at all, maybe you saw, I asked a question last night, if you were able to see it, but I'm going to ask the question again. But if you had children, if you have them currently, or you hope, young children, or you ever hope to, the question I want to ask you for a moment is, if God forbid something happened in your life and you ended up in a coma, you were out of it, you couldn't do anything. There you were in a coma. What would you want with your children? I mean, would you want your kids to you know what, you guys go fend for yourself. You got this, 2 years old. It will make you stronger, right? 2 years old. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You'll get it. And so you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want your kids to fend for themselves, and you wouldn't want someone to grudgingly say, okay, I guess I'll take care of your kids until you get out of the coma. What you would want is someone to love your kids and care for your children and protect them and guide them and teach them and lead them until you're such a place where you're healthy enough to take care of them yourself. True? And in the worst case scenario, let's just say you don't make it out of the coma and you die. How many would want our children to be adopted into someone's family where they could care for them and love them and give them a new name and a new start and treat them as their own? Isn't that what we would all want? And so, again, the question is, how do you fulfill the law? And do unto others, or love your neighbor as you want to be loved, or as you treat yourself. In other words, just as you look out for your own children, your own interests, do the same for those around you. That's loving your neighbor. Ironically, maybe not so ironically, God has the same desire for your children that you do. In Psalm 82:4, it says, defend the weak and the fatherless. Defend them. Go out of your way to protect and guide the weak and those that are orphans, the fatherless. In James 1:27, James is working through this whole idea of what does real faith look like. Can you say, I love God and not have any actions? And James would say, no way. I will demonstrate my faith in God by what I do. So we're not saved by what we do, but what we do really does reflect the faith that we have. And so he goes on to say, listen, let me just tell you, for example, what real faith looks like. 127, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless as this, to look after orphans and the widows in their distress, to keep oneself from being polluted. In other words, James says, listen, a cornerstone of your faith is to care for the orphan, care for the fatherless. Deuteronomy 14:29 says, it's our responsibility to care for the orphan. And when we do that, God says, I will bless you in all the work of your hands. As As a matter of fact, if you would pull out your notes real quick, you're going to find a small portion for notes, a large portion of homework. You're welcome. There is a lot of things for you to do this week, and so please look that up. Take a moment, not while I'm preaching, please, but when you leave, when you're at work. I'm just kidding. Look that up if you would. 43 different references looking out and taking care of the orphaned. But this is modern-day foster care. Modern-day foster care or orphan care is taking care of a child or children when their parents or relatives simply cannot do so. In all practical terms, they are fatherless. For whatever reason, and they are complex, they simply do not have the ability to responsibly care for their children. And so God asks you and me to come alongside, and as we'd want for our own children to do the same, to do likewise. And no, it's not always simple. It's not always easy. The reality is that just because you become pregnant doesn't mean you're ready to be a mom. Whether it's drug addiction, whether it's just simply a young age, whether it's life experience, or whether it's a mental state, there are several reasons of why we need people to come alongside and help. Just because you're a guy, and we know this all too often, just because you're a guy that can have sexual intercourse doesn't mean you're ready to be a dad. It takes a lot more. And so we are faced with the dilemma that we live in today, a world filled with drug addiction, mental health issues, death, abuse, divorce. And you know who suffers the most? Children. When someone's addicted to drugs, I hate this deal about legalize everything. I just, another topic, another message, whatever, but you know who suffers the most when someone's addicted to drugs? It's the children. You know who suffers the most when somebody, through whatever happens in their life, they end up being incarcerated? It's the children that suffer the most. You know who suffers the most when someone is verbally or physically or sexually abused? It's the children. Who suffers the most in sex trafficking? Yeah, pornography doesn't hurt anybody, does it? It's the children. It's the children. A sinful world, an imperfect world, simply has caused a lot of children to need a place to call home. A lot of children that need someone to love them, to train them, to fight for them, to lead them. And listen, this is important. For however long a season God gives you. Because of this, right now in the U.S., there are 400,000 children that are in need of a temporary home today. 400,000. There are 100,000 needing to be adopted right now. Right now. I'm looking for a forever family. I'm looking for a home. I'm looking for a dad or a mom or somebody that will love me and take care of me. 100,000 in just the U.S. alone. With all my heart, I believe the Bible says that the church is God's plan A. Is God's plan A. Right now in the state of Michigan, there are 300, I believe the last number I saw was 334 children looking to be adopted. This isn't even foster care, this is just adoption in Michigan. If you're taking notes, I'd write down MARE, M-A-R-E, I think it's mare.org. And there are 334 listed pictures of children. And just so that we don't think it's just a number, I want you to meet John. John is a jovial kind of guy who's usually happy. He's developed quite a sense of humor and generally laughs when someone tells a joke. John is a very sweet boy, it says his worker. He is very smart. He's enjoying playing outside. He loves riding the bike. He's involved in karate. He states he would like to play soccer as well. That's John. This is Gary. Gary takes pride in his personality as well as achievements. He likes people to know that he's a good athlete who enjoys playing many sports. His favorite include football and hockey and basketball. As a matter of fact, Gary wants to become a professional basketball player when he gets older. Gary is especially proud of his interest in science, particularly his favorite, wild animals, which include sharks and tigers and cheetahs and monkeys. He also likes pets such as dogs and cats and fish. If he could visit anywhere in the world, Gary would travel to Cedar Point. And I just want you to, for a moment, let this sink in. This isn't a pet. This isn't a dating site. This is a 9-year-old young boy without a family. Let me continue with what he says. I like to travel to Cedar Point. I want to ride roller coasters and eat popcorn and cotton candy. Gary also wants to ride a horse in Kentucky. But listen to this. However, he doesn't have lofty expectations for a future forever family. He just wants a family who likes to spend time together and perhaps enjoys swimming or visiting an amusement park. He isn't just a number. He isn't just a picture, but I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. They call her Yaddy. You can call her Yaddy too. She has everyone's best interest in mind. A worker says she has a heart for others. As a very charming young lady, she enjoys playing cards and doing crafts and jumping ropes, especially after school. She loves the outdoors. When she spends time with her friends, she loves going to the mall. Sounds like every other young girl, doesn't it? With her future forever family, Yadi hopes to travel and play card games together. I am not oversimplifying this by any means. I'm not. There are some children that do take very special, they have special physical needs or mental needs, and that not everyone can handle or can deal with, but somebody can. There are many children that simply have emotional trauma, and I don't mean simply as if to say little about it. It's a lot. But what would you want done with your child? Listen, any child that goes through a death is going to be traumatized. Period. Any child that has to leave their home is going to be traumatized. Period. But it's our privilege. It's our responsibility. I believe we act most like God when we look out for the least among us. This is Cassidy. Cassidy is a creative young girl who loves to do crafts, loves doing art. She enjoys playing as well as attending church and school. And then listen to this. When she first meets people, Cassidy is a bit reserved. Does that sound like your 4-year-old child too? I went to, what do you call that? Fist pump somebody today, and they acted very reserved, like most 4-year-olds do. I looked at all these pictures, and I wanted to call my wife and say, Monica, we're going to adopt 335 kids. I can't. You can't. But listen to this. The need looks overwhelming, and hopefully your heart is stirred. With 400,000 children needing temporary placement, 100,000 adoption, there's way more than 500,000 people that call themselves believers in America. The church is God's plan A. It's our privilege, it's our joy, it's our responsibility. And if we don't do it, someone else will. Some way. Is there a cost? Absolutely. As I said before, children that are in foster care or seeking adoption are there because something happened. Something happened. We don't know what it is always, but something happened. It could be because the fact that the goal is always to keep the children at home. They may have been several visits to their home until finally the children had to be removed after several visits. Something happened. But even in that, only 1/3, and this is important, only 1/3 of the children in foster care have any kind of diagnosable disability. Only 1/3. Trauma, oh yeah. Hurts, absolutely. Is there difficulties? Yes. But I believe the reward is out of this world. The fact is the system that we live in is far from perfect. All kinds of imperfect people trying their best. It can get frustrating. It can get upsetting. Yes. Is there a cost? Yes. How many remember the days when we used to show like little videos of, maybe they still do, but like they're trying to save an animal, and sometimes it get funny if the animal doesn't want to get saved. Sometimes that's what it's like with children. You know, we're trying to save them from a situation that's not healthy, but no matter how bad that situation was, everything in them wants to go back. And it kind of reminds me of something like this.
Yeah, hold on. Go. This is Pinky. He's a male cat, domestic short hair. He's available for adoption. He's pet of the week, Placer County Animal Shelter. He's a very loving cat.
Hang on to it, please. Oh, here. Pinky.
Pinky.
Pinky, whoa. Whoa.
Well, we got a wildcat on our hands. Pinky, settle down, bud. Careful, Cole. Careful. Well, I get a catch pole. Somebody got a catch pole.
Oh. Pinky.
Just set it over.
No.
Get a catch pole.
You gonna catch our pole to get him?
Yeah, because I'm not going to grab him. Oh. Dude.
Watch it, he's caught up in this. Just disconnect it from the jack. You got them back?
Excuse my language.
I have never been bitten, but some sure have, I'm sure. There is a cost. There'll be meetings, there's unhealthy behaviors that you're trying your best to work through. You will give your heart away. your heart will be crushed. Some have said, I could never do foster care. It will break my heart. Let me just suggest to you, if it doesn't, you're not doing it right. But when did serving God ever become about convenience? When did God ever say that serving me would be comfortable and convenient? Anybody? When did God ever say that? As a matter of fact, everything I read says the exact opposite. While we protect or try to protect our heart from breaking, there's a child with a broken heart that needs healing. I want to give you 2 promises. It won't be easy, but the child is worth it. The child is worth it. Come to think of it, God isn't even asking us to do anything more than he didn't do himself. Isn't that true? Didn't God the Father see us lost and in sin and hopeless and needing someone to lift us up? Isn't that what happened? Didn't God see you in your state and then in response sent his son on this earth to be ridiculed and mocked and to die a cruel, horrid death, to rise again only for the very purpose that you and I could be adopted as sons and daughters? Isn't that what our Father did for us? Isn't that what he calls us to do likewise? So let me ask the inevitable question, does that mean we should all be foster parents or adopt? Maybe, but I would suggest no. I would go as far as to say there are many that should not foster care or adopt. Some of us need to learn how to do better jobs of our own children. Some of us are in a place that's just not a good time to do that. But there is no such thing as a perfect time or a perfect family, but you need to be ready. You need to know it's God. So I do believe there are several that God is calling to do foster care or to adopt. And I know there are several that God is not. But I also know this, that God is calling all of us to do something. All of us to do something. I will tell you my goal today. It's easy to get busy in life. It's easy to go on and just, out of sight, out of mind. I have one goal today, and I want to totally shatter your world. If I have shattered your world, I have succeeded today. What can I do? I think there's a key part if you don't feel led to do foster care or adoption at this point. There's some things we can all do. Certainly preventative. The old phrase is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Get involved with young parents. It's crazy that we can go all the way through high school and college and never really have a parenting class. For most of us, the only thing that we have to help us determine how to parent is the way we were parented, and that's not always a good example. And so if you, especially empty nesters, you have raised children, you're like the king of this or the queen, you know what I mean? So don't think that your time is done. Can I just encourage you to take somebody else under your wing and just speak life into them? Buy them lunch. Not everybody, but find somebody. It doesn't have to be a program. Just ask God to place somebody in your life that you can invest in. Seek somebody out. You want to buy me lunch? I'm all in favor. But invest in someone's life. Young couples, especially today, need your friendship, your support, and your honesty. They need people to come alongside them. And they're not going to sign up on a brochure. get involved in children's ministry, if at all possible. Not everyone's wired that way, I get it. But we have a brief window on Wednesday and Sunday, just a brief moment to speak life into some young people. And one of the coolest things about working in that ministry, it's great working with the kids, but also go beyond that and work with the parents. And so while you're loving on little Joey or Johnny, whoever it is, man, when the mom or dad, whoever comes to pick up that child, invest in them too. Hey, Johnny was great today, even if you have to lie. You know what I mean? That's all parents want to hear. Tell me my boy was great. Tell me the facts, and 3 days later. I'm just saying. But invest in the parents. If your schedule can allow, I mean, it's great that some of us can work a Sunday, once every 4 weeks or something. But if your schedule allows working in one service and serving in one, be devoted to that one service with that area of ministry, because you start building relationships with the children and their parents, and there's some connecting that happens. It's very difficult to connect once every 4 weeks. Don't take yourself away from the volunteer card if you can't. I'm just saying, if you can, try to get connected on a regular basis. In so doing, you're speaking into the life of a child, but also speaking into the life of their parent. Be intentional. So not everyone is called to foster care or to adopt, but we're all called to do something. Right now, we make a monthly insert. We need to do better of empowering parents. How can I help a parent who's in foster parent or adoptive parent? Let me give you just 4. By the way, this is on your notes, so please take a look at that. But organize a meal, get certified. Hey, if I have a foster child and I want to go out, I can only have that foster child with someone that's certified. So get certified so that you can watch someone's child. Or, instead of just saying, hey, if you ever need me, call me, do this. Get certified and then call somebody and say, hey, I'd like to watch your kids Friday night for 4 hours, go out to eat. I've got this. That's a great way to help. If you can't be an adoptive parent or a foster parent, you can help those that feel called to do that. There's many ways, but look at your notes. I have Bonnie Harrison and Kim Boucher with us today, and I'd like to give them just a few moments. I know I'm a little bit late, but you guys take your where are you? Oh, there you are. Take your time in sharing, but they're going to share some steps that if you're curious in foster care, or if you're curious about adopting, maybe what that looks like. But once you guys go ahead and come up, can you give them a warm hand? I don't know what a warm hand means, but oh well. I don't know what that means. A warm hand. Don't give them a cold hand. Give them a warm. I know. Anyway, I ramble.
Thank you, Pastor Jason, for your message this morning. It's such a needed thing in our area. Currently, we have for Delta County here, we have about 76 kids in care. And I myself work as a licensing worker. Kim is my supervisor, and together we try to find placements for all these kiddos, and sometimes it's challenging. We have a great group of foster parents and foster homes in our area, but there is a need for more. I'm just going to go through the licensing process real quick. Maybe you're curious as to know what that all entails, so I'm just going to let you know what that entails. First of all, you would contact me, a licensing worker. We have a table in the back. Maybe you're not ready to sign up for that today, but we have information for you back there. It starts out with an orientation. We have some DVDs or videos online that you can watch, and that gives you might answer some of your questions that you might have for that. Takes about 3 hours to complete the orientation process. You gather a lot of information. You have a lot of questions for me. Then after you complete that, I would make a home visit to your home, set up a time to come and do a little walkthrough through your house and discuss any barriers that we might see, or answer all your questions and go from there. After the first initial home visit, then we can fill out an application. The application, once you sign that, gives us the go-ahead to run some clearances on you. You would go through a fingerprinting process and background checks, and also on the application you list 3 references that you are willing to let us send out references on you, and then they give us your feedback just to ensure that it's a good process for you, good fit for you to be a foster family. Then after that, that's when the home evaluation starts, and this can take like 3 to 6 months. This is a legal process. We start communicating with Lansing at this point and send your information there as we go along. If you live out in the country, we'll do like a home environmental health inspection on your home, like your septic and your water. That is not any cost to you. We do that as part of the process. And then also we provide training. Our PRIDE training is a 12 hours of training, and PRIDE stands for Parent Resources for Information, Development, and Education. During this 12-hour time period, like we ran it in January every Tuesday night for 3 hours or whatever, and it's a lot to process, but I just think you get so much good information, and it's a good way to connect with other foster families. We try to bring in resources so that you can get questions answered and try to, there's no perfect process, and there's a lot of unknowns a lot of times, but being able to connect with other foster families and get information is a good start. So that's basically the process.
Okay. Like Jason said, my name is Kim Boucher. I've been working in the child welfare field since 1992. I'm from a large family myself, and my parents, my siblings will say to me, we don't know how you do this work. And it is very difficult, but I say to them, somebody has to do it. And so why not me? We are in need of foster parents in this area. If you think about it for a minute, we have 76 children in foster care in Delta County. And statewide, there's 13,000 children in foster care in Michigan. To be a foster parent, you need to be willing to work with the child's birth parents. Our main goal in almost all of our cases is to reunify children with their parents. That's what we want. But we do know that that's not always possible. About 70% of foster parents do end up adopting. We're looking for people that can be supportive of these efforts to return a child to their parents' home. We're also, as Jason mentioned, we're looking for people that would be able to work with children who have emotional and behavioral needs. We have just a giant need for homes that are willing to take teenagers. And in working with teenagers, somebody that could also help these kids with their independent living skills and obtaining those needs. So I guess that's it. I just want you to prayerfully consider if you might be someone who could do this. And I thank you very much for having us here.
Wait, I have a microphone. The worship team can come out if they would. As they shared, there's a table. You guys can go ahead and head out to the table. There's a table up back to get more information. Please do that. I do know several families that are doing foster care now and are in our church body. And if maybe you are here and you're interested and maybe just want to talk to one of us, we'd be happy to talk to you, but let us know somehow. But thank you guys for all just being a part of God's kingdom. Amen.